Alright everybody, and welcome back to the Roundup. Delighted to be joined by Girvan manager Dean Keenan. Dino, how are you, mate?
I'm very well, Paul. Good to be here. Apologies like you did the last time. I appreciate
That's
Josh
alright.
getting in at the last minute for me. So I know that I couldn't do this today. I'm a hard man to get a hold of on a Sunday usually. So
Well, I did
good to
notice
be
on the
here.
social media you were maybe having a couple of libations last night.
I had a lot to do last night, so I had a couple of Guinness and been a bit quieter today and no partaked as much. So it's good to be here, mate.
Excellent, mate, excellent. Before we get into it, going to give a wee shout out for our sponsor for this episode. It's the Fitness Factory, Unit 6 and 8, Garlock Road, Port Glasgow. That is owned by Midge, Chris Miller, and Gary Pettigrew, both of Port Glasgow. The Fitness Factory supports all genders, ages, and fitness levels to overcome gym anxiety and work towards your healthiest self. Let's build confidence together. You should get down if you can. If you're in that local area, you should get down. It's a great gym, great guys as well. But enough of that. Let's get us on to the football. So we've got the West of Scotland round 3 from yesterday. Not an abundance of league games due to poor weather and the fact that, as we were talking off camera, the Cup's going for about 7 seasons in the one season in the West of Scotland. So we've got Clydebank 3, St Rochs 4, Largs 6, East Kilbride 0, Larkhall 3, West Park 2, Pollok 1, Muirkirk 1, Muirkirk 1, 4-3 in penalties, Renfrew 1, Darvel 2, Pollok 0, Drumchapel 4, Kilsyth 2, St Cadoc's 4, Colwynham 1, Thornywood 2, Port Glasgow 1, Troon 4, Ashfield 1, Cumbernauld 1, 7-6 to Cumbernauld in penalties. We had this discussion on the radio yesterday. What do you think was the biggest shock of the day? Was it the Rock beating Clydebank 4-3 or Muirkirk beating Pollok in penalties?
I think for me, Muirkirk, to be honest, mate, I understand the thing, but Clydebank, they've been absolutely phenomenal all season. At some point, it was inevitable that they would suffer a defeat, and
Aye.
St Rochs are capable of beating anyone on their day. But for me, the Muirkirk results the one that stands out. For the guys that have been in there, I know that obviously they've taken a full team there and they've been together for a few years, but for them to go ahead and beat Pollocks, albeit on penalties, is just an absolutely unbelievable achievement. Pollok for me, up there with Clydebank in terms of Glasgow teams and the best in the region and the best in the area. So for Muirkirk to go ahead and beat them and knock them at the cup, I just thought it was absolutely superb. I know that Pollok will obviously be disappointed. It's a cup that they could probably target winning. Um, and the club definitely deserves silverware. There's no doubt about it for what they've got behind the scenes and the support that they get. But for me, for Muirkirk to go there, obviously it was a game for Muirkirk to play at home and win. It's absolutely superb for them. But listen, let's not discredit St Rochs. Both equal amazing achievements. We'd played Clydebank early in the season up there and gave them a fright for a bit. But listen, the talent that they've got, and listen, Moffo obviously, no like the losing feeling, which has not been one that's been familiar for them this year. But I think deep down, see if you're getting your nose blooded and it's in the West of Scotland Cup, with the greatest respect to the other competitions that they're in at the moment, I think that's the one that they're
Aye.
probably taking a defeat in. So,
I do
no,
agree. I, I do agree. I think that Clydebank, if they had to lose one game, this probably wouldn't have been the worst one to lose. I mean, that was 18 wins and one draw at the first 19 games, and obviously now they've got the defeat. It's funny, we spoke about this yesterday, myself and Gaz on the radio, and do you know, I looked at it and I thought, what shocked me more, because Gaz was leaning towards the Muirkirk, and 100% I wouldn't want to take anything away for Ross and the team there, because the fact that I know it was on paper their home game, but they're playing at Newlandsfield with a young team. They've done unbelievably well to get that result. But when I thought about it, I was like, do you know what? I'm not as shocked that they got something off of Pollok. I'm more shocked that the Rock took 4 off of Clydebank when Clydebank hadn't conceded more than 1 goal a game. But do you know, for me, Pollock's a funny one just now. And this is in no way a criticism to the management team or the players, because I know firsthand what Maxie's dealing with and how hard he's working behind the scenes. Pollok are only a big name now in my eyes, and I don't mean this to be disrespectful, but Pollok are only a big name. That's a team who, considering the budget cuts they've had in the last 2 years, the fact that they're probably just going to be mid-table in the Premier League is a decent result for me. I think that Maxi's done a decent job for that, and I know I'm going to probably upset people, but you look back, Pollok have won, I don't know, 2 or 3 trophies in the last 15 years, and one of them was when they won the Super First. They came back up, and that was 10 years ago. I think that they are so far off of where they should be. And I know the committee, they've had some replacements on the committee who are obviously, the guys are working hard to try and bring them back to where they were years gone by. But I feel that they are not anywhere near what they used to be. But again, that's no taking it away from Muirkirk. I thought Muirkirk, they've had a tremendous season. They showed real character to bounce back after losing to Nielsen last week as well. But I just felt like the Rock scoring four against Clydebank shocked me more than Muirkirk, and that's a compliment to Muirkirk for me.
No, listen, I totally get that, and when Muirkirk, they've won 10 out of 13 games in the league, so they're used to winning games. Um, excuse me, and listen, Pollok for me is always going to be the biggest club in the region, and they're always going to be that. I always think that way, growing up that side of Glasgow, and it's an amazing club. But you're right, you know what I mean. They have absolutely underachieved, and I think Max is suffering from a byproduct of previous
Aye,
management, maybe a
definitely.
budget that was inflated and not done enough, But Max has done a great job there. He's got his own players in, and obviously the budget has been diminished from what it was previously. I think that's goes with it saying. But listen, hopefully they can get a run of results together and compete for something because you were my local club growing up, so I want them to be doing well.
Mhm.
But I totally get your point and your thought process. But like St Rochs to go and score fours, absolutely unbelievable.
Aye, yeah,
Um,
it's a tremendous result. A game that caught my eye yesterday, which I thought was quite an interesting one, was Renfrew and Darvel. Renfrew, I think they're having a great season, and I sing his praise a lot. I think the job he's done there in the last few years has been nothing short of tremendous. But that's Darvo. I can never quite remember the figure, but that's like 14, might even be 15 games in 90 minutes they've no lost. And I appreciate a lot of it, like maybe more than half of the games are in the cups. But Mick looks like he's starting to get his stamp on that team. And that's a good win away to Renfrew because that's a tricky place to go.
I think it is a tricky place, and the boys at Renfrew have done a phenomenal job. I think they had to go back down a league to come back up,
Aye.
and you see the rewards that they've got for sticking with the guys. And obviously, I know Ryan Boris was in there, David McKenna was in there previously. You know what I mean? They have good experienced players in there to kind of get the ball rolling. But as for Mick at Darvel, and I think I remember when we were at Troon and he brought his Ashfield team down and they were so well organised, so
Aye.
well drilled, and they played such a unique style of football that day that, they came down here and they battered us and they beat us and they knocked us out the cup. And I think that the style of play that he's obviously had to deal with challenges at Darvo as well this year, but finally he's starting to get a wee bit of a tune out of the boys and maybe they're believing in a bit of what he's asking them to do, you know what I mean? So when you start winning games, that becomes a lot more easy for you. But listen, I think he's a terrific coach and obviously what's going on at the clubs had a big impact on the start of the season that they've had. But I wouldn't be surprised if they strung a few good results together now and started to climb up the table.
Well, you know what it's like. You've got into a club who are in a transition period and you've had to build quite similar to Mick has. How difficult for I know this is your first kind of standalone type job. How difficult is it to go in somewhere and think, right, I just need to try and put a team together and then worry about what style of football we're going to have and how successful we're going to be?
It was very difficult, and I took the job really late in the summer as well. So a lot of the work that had kind of been done for other clubs by that stage, I took it really late in the summer. So when I started pre-season, we only had like 7 or 8 players available and had to go and try and bring in players. And when I take that job, I think all managers have got these amazing ideas of how we want to play, and but it's hard when you're losing games. It's hard when you're losing games to maintain that identity. But what we've done, the only thing that I promised the job boys in the summer, uh, PG, is that I'll try and create an environment that's enjoyable to come. And it has been that so far, and again, like you said about Mick, when you come in and you try and implement your own style and your own ideas, sometimes as a player, I've done it myself, your natural reaction is just to revert back to what
Mhm.
prototype is and what you believe in. But I've really enjoyed it so far. They've been an amazing bunch of boys to work with, and hopefully, like Darvo and Mick, that we can start getting some more positive results and climb up the table.
Aye, we'll touch on it a wee bit more in depth when we talk about the third division, which was absolutely tremendous yesterday for a neutral. Um, Clyde Athletic losing 4-2 to St Cadoc's gave them a right fright. 2-0 up, looking like they're really pushing them. Bob McHugh has obviously done an absolute masterclass, scored 4 goals in about 20 minutes. But that's a team as well. We talk about styles and identities. That's a team for me who, with Bailey, I mean, without being, I know Bailey well, so no take it the wrong way. Bailey's just a boy, you know what I mean, in terms of management. He's just a boy in terms of management. But I really like what he tries to do there. He's got a very good young side and he's trying to play good football. And it probably St Cadoc's might have been a team that suited for them yesterday because Fez does the same. His teams are very, very kind of good footballing sides as well. But it's unfortunate for them not to hold on and try and get something.
I listen, after going 2-0 up, I think they'll be frustrated. They'll probably see it as a missed opportunity. But they've been a great game yesterday to watch as a neutral. Two good footballing teams. We've faced Kilsyth twice already this year, once in the league and one in the cup. Um, and what's really impressed with me is that like they've got their style and they stick to it.
Mhm.
Within the game, you can see that the players work stuff out for themselves. And that's a credit to Bailey and his coaching staff. Um, and listen, obviously St Cadoc's as well. They'll see a huge positive in that. The fact that they've been down 2-0, and probably know had the start of the season that they would have liked. Albeit they won the cup last week, but for them to go 2-0 down and then show that strength of character, in a difficult conditions and difficult circumstances to go then and score 4 goals. Obviously, Bob showing his quality. Um, to get through the next round, that'll be the most important and pleasing thing for them. But the manner of the fact that they've conceded a couple of goals again will be worrying for them, I'm sure. But listen, like every game, you can take away the positives, and it's easier to take away the positives when you're winning and you're in the next round.
We talked about Clydebank, obviously, with the competitions they're in, that this isn't the worst one to lose a game in. I think St Cadoc's, for me personally, are probably on the other side of that where they won't win the league this year. So the fact they've already won the Strathclyde demolition, I'd imagine that Fez would be pushing quite hard to try and go and win another trophy or potentially 2 trophies just to make it a successful season because the team's not been quite consistent enough in the league to get themselves into a position where they're probably going to win it.
No, I totally agree. And if you're winning trophies and you're winning cup games and you're getting to deep in the competitions, and like you said, this season it's going to be a big ask for them to go and win the league. I think last year they were in contention for a spell, and I think the midweek games kind of caught up with them. They had a couple of poor defeats midweek and maybe kind of derailed their challenge last year, but they were a hell of a lot closer last year than what they are this year. But I think again the credit's got to go with Clydebank for that one. The position they'll put themselves in the league. But no, I'm sure that they'll be targeting cup success. Obviously won the cup last week and seen they had a good night out after it. So obviously that breeds success and that breeds that winning mentality that I'm sure they'll be striving for.
In the old First Division clash in the West yesterday, we had Cowannon 1, Thornywood 2. Cowannon ended up with 2 red cards late on, one of them being Brian Bolin, who, in my opinion, obviously without knowing what happened, it said on their Twitter that it was a second booking for dissent, which would be disappointing for a guy of his experience when the team need to try and get something there. Both teams play each other next week in the league, but Kev's another one where he's had to come in at a strange kind of situation with Chris Aitken, the way it finished with him there, and it was kind of a bit odd where he was potentially lined up for another job and then that fell through and he'd already walked away. But then you've got Adam Coakley, who's a new manager as well at this level. He's done pretty well with Thornywood, and they look like they've got a good chance of getting promoted. So it's quite an interesting preview for what could come next week in the league.
It was, and I'm sure I read a wee bit of the Cowan on Twitter. I thought it was quite scathing actually after the game about the defeat, and it wasn't a surprise to me to see Thorn would go there
No,
and win, Adam's got some great players there. Him and Gomes assembled a really good squad, and I speak to Adam back and forward, and I know how much enjoyment he's getting out of it now. But what Adam's got is an enthusiasm for football, and I'm sure that that will be infectious in his dressing room. For winning again, like you say, with Tiff leaving in the summer, and again they're another club that seems to be in a bit of a transition at the moment, and Kev's went in there, and he's obviously had a reasonable start, I think. And they're one that could push on, they could go either way in the league, but I just think that for going in, they've got to remember where they are at the moment, and as much as you were saying earlier about Pollok being a big name only, I think Cohen in are a huge, huge football
aye,
club. But at this moment, it's maybe not the case. And I just think that you've got to give the guy time. Kev's got to have a bit of time. He's brought in a lot of players in the summer. You see that he's starting to get a bit more of a settled squad and a bit more of a settled team. And I think that'll be the frustration for Brian as well. Brian, we've all been there as players, and I think he was club captain yesterday. So for him to get sent off for the sense, obviously without knowing the situation's disappointing. I'm sure he'll be frustrated at that. But when stuff is hard against you, it's you've got to stick together, and I'm sure that the co-winning boys will do that. But listen, I wouldn't be surprised, as I said, to see Thornwood up there. They've got some terrific players. They recruited really, really well in the summer. And I know that Adam taking on that gig and being the main man in there, he'll do well. So I just wish them all the success.
aye. They're only sitting 3 points off the promotion spots with a game in hand, and based on current form, you wouldn't put it past them to beat Cohen next week and put himself potentially into that spot. But the final game in the West of Scotland Cup we'll talk about is your former club Troon. Port Glasgow won, Troon 4. On paper, it looks like a very convincing result, and I don't know if you've spoken to any of the guys, but the Port really pushed them, and it was a couple of late goals that sealed the win for Troon, which I think is ultimately is what you expect. Troon are a really good side in the Premier League, and that quality will shine through later on in the game. But I'm a big advocate. I love obviously the Port and stuff, but it shows for me their quality is they're getting a lot better, and they're kind of pushing a team like Troon so far into a game.
Aye, listen, I've spoke to a couple of the boys. I thought it was 3-1 maybe.
See, to be honest, I thought it was 3-1, but the league had it 4-1, so I just
I'm sure it
assumed I
was
missed a
3-1,
goal.
mate. But for me, I spoke to a couple of the boys yesterday. And I spoke to the chairman actually last night as well about the game, and it was a really, really tight game. I think the actual sending off, Troon and the boys sent off 60 minutes or so, and I think that actually helped Troon in a way
Aye,
that the game kind of opened up a bit. But Tam's done a great job at Port Glasgow. What he's done really well, he's got Midge obviously in there,
aye.
and he's
I
got
believe I
Dick.
believe Midge sold the nickels for one of the goals. I'm just saying that's what I'd heard.
Well, there's an ex-Troon player. I don't know if there's maybe someone in that there, but no, and I've not spoke to Midge about the game, but he's got Midge and he's got Alec McWaters. They've
I
got
know.
Sean Rogers. They've got some really good
A lot of
players,
aye,
local
good
boys,
experience.
local boys that know the level. So I done a wee report for them for Whitlets earlier in the season, and I wasn't surprised to see them go to Whitlets and win. I think it was in the South Challenge maybe. But listen, they'll be up there in contention, and yesterday by all accounts they ran Troon close, but flip side of that is it for Troon, going down to 10 men in a tough away venue to get through and get the result, maybe when you've not been at your best.
Aye,
I know that they made a few changes yesterday as well, so utilised the squad a wee bit. So, but no, listen, Troon are doing well. They've got a huge game coming up this weekend against Lockheed in the Scottish Cup, so wish them well for that. But they've had a great start to the season also.
aye. They're really informed, sitting in third in the league just now with tied in points with Johnson Borough, but with a game in hand, which I think will be 2 games in hand next week, with a big Lockheed game coming up. And we'll move on to the Premier League now. Only 2 games in the Premier League for yesterday. Gartcairn 0, Glenafton 1, Cumnock 2, Benburb 2. Obviously, there's been a massive amount of chat about the Gartcairn 15-point deduction and the £500 fine. They're obviously very unhappy with that. Then you have the issue where because Army owns Indigo and he's pulled the sponsorship for the league, it becomes quite messy. I don't know who's right and who's wrong in that situation, but Gartcairn for me have gone from. I still don't think. I think they've got too much quality to get relegated. But yesterday can be quite concerning where they've gone for being top half, very safe, to second bottom in the league. They've not won a game in 3, including yesterday. Glenafton, who are a team who are in that kind of mix with them, go and beat them. Then you get Cumnock and the bench who are down there with them as well. Both go and get a point yesterday. There's the potential that they could slip into a bit of trouble if a couple of results don't go their way.
There's no doubt about it, and obviously what's went on, it's went on. You need to deal with it. Like you say, who's in the right, who's in the wrong, with on, it's definitely above my pay grade. But for me, how many of those players at Gartcairn have been signed for a relegation battle?
I know.
That's the thing for me. And as a player, you get signed thinking that they're going to, because there's no doubt about it, that with the budget that they had at the start of the season and the ideas that they've guys have got up there for progressing and pushing the club forward, they would have been up there wanting to challenge.
Mhm.
So then to flip that mindset, just to almost be like going through the motions, it's going to be a tough one. It's a tough one for the management team to deal with. For me, looking in from the outside, and like I say, these guys they've assembled a squad that was heading obviously towards challenger for the league. Obviously McShane's left, Fergie's left, there's a few other Bronski's left, So if you're a player in that dressing room, are you really believing in what's happening? I can't answer that, but it's worrying times. It's easy to say that they've got the quality to get out of that, but there's been some good teams relegated from the top league, and there's no a bad team in that league. They're all
No.
fighting for points. Every single team is fighting for points. And for Gartcairn, it's a difficult one. But what they need to do is they need to. It's easy for me to say again from the outside, but they need to draw a line in the 15 points and move on from it. Like, because if they don't, then there's every chance that that could continue to come back on them. You could be sitting 3, 4 months down the line and thinking about if we had those 15 points back in the bag and
Aye.
where we would be. The reality is that that's not going to change. So it's a difficult one for Mick and his coaching staff. But listen, that's the nature of the beast, unfortunately, sometimes. But I'm sure that they will have enough quality. But like I say, there's a lot of teams in that league with quality, so they might just well find themselves down there
An
in the.
issue Gartcairn have as well is they've played. So they are sitting on 3 points now with a 15-point deduction, 2 points clear of Darvel. As we touched on, Darvel have had a bit of form recently. Even though they've not won any league games yet, they've drawn the last 4. They're undefeated in 90 in a couple of months now. They've got 4 games in hand on them. I mean, that is only a win or 2 out of the 4. You jump them and you're a few points clear. Shots, I think the shots are going to go down. I just don't think that they were quite ready when they came up last season, and they're struggling. But even at that, Shots have got 3 games in hand. Hurlford have got 2 games in hand. Cumnock have got 3 games in hand. The Bens have got 2 games in hand. Pollok, who, in my opinion, are too far away, 10 points clear of them, have got 4 games in hand on them. It's they games in hand could be massive come maybe next month or kind of February, March time when Gartcairn are running out of games.
Well, that's it. So all these games in hand, the majority of them, I take it, are going to have to be against each other.
Aye.
So somebody's going to have to win those games. So whether a team moves 4 points clear of them, 1 point clear of them, it's going to be a tricky situation. But listen, they've got to focus on themselves. If they can somehow manage to get into the turn of the year there or thereabouts in terms of getting out of the relegation zone, then I'm fine. I'm sure that they'll be fine. Not even at the halfway stage yet. I think there's a few teams down the bottom of the league, that maybe comes as a surprise to folk. Come also with the investment that they had there in the summer.
Mhm.
But listen, like I say, I've worked in the league for a long time, and there's a lot of top teams in the league, and there's a lot of talent. Largs, look at Largs. Every single year they're underestimated, and they always seem to be end up
Aye.
top 5. So it just shows you that the league is kind of topsy turvy, but the top end of the league's obviously exciting, but the bottom end is going to be it's going to go to the wire. There's no doubt about it.
Aye,
It's
I
going
don't
to go to
agree.
the wire.
I think though, like you look at the Cumnock and Ben's game yesterday, 2 each, and this is something I say on Johnny talk about quite a lot in the show is say Johnson Borough who are in second or Troon who are in large who are up there fighting Drumchapel. A draw for you can be really disappointing where you think, oh well that's 2 points dropped. But when you're at the other end of the table, coming on the bench could maybe be walking away for yesterday saying, right, well, that's a point picked up. It's a point further away from the relegation zone. And I agree, all these teams have to play each other, possibly twice, some of them. And I think on paper just now, Clydebank look like they've got the league sealed. But if they have a bit of collapse after yesterday, if it affects them, obviously they could get drawn back in. But as it stands, they look quite comfortable at the moment. But I think you could be looking at 6 or 7 teams fighting for that relegation, 3 spots at the bottom of the Premier League.
I completely agree. I completely agree, and I think that come the end of the season, it is going to be the bottom of the table that's going to be the exciting part. I think Clydebank are too good, and I think they'll hopefully pull away and go on and get promoted, like they deserve to do. But at that bottom of the table, like, I think all the way up to Glenafton, I think
Yep,
Pollok's probably just got enough. But Glenafton, Pates went in there yesterday, and what a win that is for them,
yep.
What a win that is for them to go to Gartcairn, and win 1-0, keep the clean sheet away from home. There's not many teams that do that in the league, so delighted for him. And his first, obviously, gig up there. And there'll be a few teams, it'll all depend as well on the transfer market, there'll be a few teams, I dare say, that will try and strengthen come January or what have you. And we've already seen it, the market's been. Um, Quite busy in the summer, so I've got no doubt whatsoever that there's a few teams there that will go and look to strengthen, whether it be at the top end of the league or at the bottom end of the league.
No, I definitely agree. We'll move on to the second division. Bellshill 2, Bonnet 0, St Anthony's 4, Cambuslang 2. Bellshill and the Ants, they're massive, massive points for them. The Ants have been a really bad run of form recently, and I was struggling to see where they were going to pick up points. Cambuslang, I was doing watching them against the Pollok, didn't look very good to me. Then they've gone and won a couple of games, a good wins as well, where you think, was that turning? So that's a huge, huge 3 points for me for the Ants. And I granted the Ants have played considerably more games than most teams in the league. They're past the halfway stage already. But that was a huge 3 points to give them a wee bit of breathing space on the bottom three and keep them 4 points clear of relegation.
It was, and listen, they've got a lot of games on, and that's the kind of the problem when you're playing so many games and you end up ahead a few fixtures and you've maybe not picked up the points. But that was a great win at the weekend, and I think it was a great win for Bellshill as well against
Yep.
Bonnet. Brings them closer to Bonnet in the league. I know that Bonneton's significantly strengthened their team in the last 5, 6 weeks with a few transfers. So for Bellshill to go and get that win, it's absolutely brilliant for them. But I listen, St Anthony's, a club close to home for me to beat Cambuslang. Paul's obviously been at Cambuslang a significant time now as well, and he's always gonna do well there. But for St Anthony's to win that game at home, score 4 goals. I think the problem for them has been the conceding the goals.
Aye.
I looked at the
41 goals they've conceded.
41 goals. 41 goals in 16 games. Averaging more or less just three a game. So, excuse me, if you're having to score 3 or 4 goals a game to get a point or 2, 3 points, then it's going to be difficult for you. But no, it's a great win for them, and hopefully that put them on an upwards trajectory coming up the next few weeks.
Well, with Bellshill and the Ants both winning, we're just talking about the Premier League and how tight the bottom is there. That's one of the ones. If Bonneton and Cambuslang had won yesterday, Bonneton would have went on to 20 points, Cambuslang would have went on to 19 points, Bellshill would have been sitting on 13, and the Ants would have been on 13. And that makes it a reasonable gap, and they're proper 6 pointers. Whereas now, the four of them, there's only 1 point separating the four of them, and it keeps it very tight. Mark, obviously, they're gone. They've picked up 3 points out of a possible 39, so they're having a really tough season for obviously different circumstances. But fourth are a funny team for me. They're sitting in second bottom with 7 points, but they've got a couple of games in hand, and in my eyes, they're capable of going and winning a couple of games and getting themselves back into that kind of pack. The one that worries me is Maryhill. It's because I think Mark's a good manager. I think he's got a good side there. I think they try and play football a good way as well. But I don't think they've won in 8 games or something. And the last game showed against Yoker where they were 2-0 up with about 15 minutes to go. Yoker get it back to 2-1 and then in injury time make it 2 each. And I think that's, it's like we've all been there where you've been playing with teams who are struggling and losing becomes a habit, and it's as soon as you lose a goal, you start going, "Oh no, here we go again. How are we going to hold it off?" Where if you're in the winning habit, you just go, "Oh, but we'll just go and score a goal ourselves." So it's very interesting doing that bottom half of the table.
Aye, and I'm very familiar with that feeling at the moment, with some defeats and that, to be honest. But for Maryhill, I think league table they've scored 25, conceded 27, so every game's kind of been tight.
Yep,
It's not as if they're going to be getting
and
losing
nobody
three.
battles them.
The other two teams down there, Fourth and Craigmark, looking at their goals against column and their goals scored column, there's been quite a considerable difference. But even St Anthony's above them, so I think Maryhill will be fine. I think that, like you say, it's maybe a byproduct of the fact that they've had a couple of defeats and maybe you get sucked into that. But listen, it's an important few weeks. I think that the emphasis has got to be on the 3 points, like you just touched on there, Paul. That if Bellshill and Bonnet and sorry, if Bellshill's and St Anthony's hadn't won, how condensed that like
Hmm.
has went from being maybe stretched a wee bit more and a team's a bit more detached. So getting to a stage of the season where the league table does start to take some shape,
Yep.
And listen, I think that over the next few weeks there's going to be a few games called off. So if you can get your game on, you can get your 3 points on the board, then I'm sure that a lot of teams will feel the benefit of that.
Aye. Moving on to the third division. Greenock 3, Glasgow United 0. Thorn 6, Glasgow Uni 7. Vale Even 4, Irvine Vics 3. I think we have to touch on the 13 goal thriller. Glasgow, you'll know better than me. We've been in that league. It's no, I don't get to watch the teams very often. Obviously I know where everybody is and I know how games should go based off of how often I do this that I kind of know inside out how the leagues are. But I don't watch these teams, and the Thorn on paper and for what I've heard from people have been very, very impressive this year. I'm not overly surprised that Glasgow Uni gave them a good game, but I was very surprised at the fact that the Thorn lost 7 goals, scoring six and still losing. It was quite a great for the neutral, but quite a surprising result.
If you score 6 goals at home, you should win the game. Certainly that should be the case. But listen, Glasgow Uni were brilliant against us the week before, and we were excellent up there, and we probably should have beat them. But you can see that they've got a clear identity. They work hard. They're a fit bunch of boys, and then they've got a couple of individual players of absolutely brilliant quality. I think the surface, obviously at Thorn, the Astro, and that would have suited Glasgow. You need to be, Airdrie's the big pitch. I think obviously Thorn would have been in the Astro and that. It would have certainly suited them. I think that, um, no disrespect to Johnny and his mob, but the likes of Lugo away for Glasgow Uni, I think will be a really difficult
Aye,
game.
tougher, aye.
But I think the product maybe the Thorn had yesterday, but what a start they had, what a
Mhm.
start they had. They've got to hope that that one defeat doesn't maybe derail them, like you were touching on with Clydebank earlier. I'm sure it won't, but we've not played Thorn yet. But I've watched a few games. Obviously, our opposition's playing against them, and they look a very, very, very well coached side. Very well coached side. So they'll be obviously frustrated at losing 7 goals. But what a game for a neutral.
Ah,
What
brilliant.
an absolute brilliant game to go and watch. Two teams going at it. And I listen, Glasgow United. I think that they've got a couple of individual players of real top quality. And I think that they'll do really well at home games. Away from home, who's to know? But I listened. It's two sides. Obviously, I've not played Thorn yet, but I was really impressed with Glasgow Uni and the way they try to play the game.
I think that Glasgow Uni, they've always had a hard few seasons, maybe the last 3, possibly 4 seasons. I think this is kind of where they are. This is now the level for me where because they are obviously a very young side and they'll have quality, but they'll also have inexperience and they'll be a bit raw at times, and that's probably why you get the kind of ups and downs that they have. The Thorn are one where obviously they've had quite a few managers in the last 2 seasons, 3 seasons, but because they promote within, there is that kind of continuity and identity, and it has been a great season. I mean, that's their first defeat in 13 games. I don't think there's any panic buttons being pressed. But yesterday was a great day for Greenock, winning 3-0 against Glasgow United. That puts Greenock within 4 points of the Thorn with a game in hand. I genuinely think the job that Fleming's doing at Greenock is It's been fantastic. He's really turned them around, and I think that they're a team who you would probably want to avoid just now because they look like the most informed team in the league.
Aye, I think that's fair to say, and out with Reeve, I think they're probably the best team that we've played this year, Greenock. Gaz's done a great job down there, and again, his recruitment's been kind of key in that. Getting guys like Ryan Cinnamon to come and play, local guys. But they were very strong at our bit. Turned us over at our bit. They were a very good side, and you could see that they've got a clear identity of how he wants them to play as well. And the boy Lambert that they got from Irvine Meadow, he's bagged the goals in earlier on the season for them, and I think that they've got good goals. They've got a variety of goals from all over the pitch. So I wasn't surprised to see them win yesterday. I think that they'll be right up there come the end of the season, and I think if you finish one or two positions above them, then you're guaranteed to be in the promotion hunt. So he's done a great job there, guys, and thankfully we don't have to play them for another wee while again.
Um, Quite an interesting one at the other end of the table. Villa leaving four, Irvine Vic's three, and I think it was two each within the first 20 minutes. It was an absolute mental start they had. Irvine Vic's have obviously picked up a wee touch with 5 points at a possible nine, the three previous games with Kev getting in as manager now until interim management until the end of the season. It's obviously been a bit of upheaval, a bit of nonsense in the background, but it looks it. But I feel like they're a team for me who I thought they were going to really start to kick on because they've got a good squad and they've got good quality there. But Villa leaving, they'll be delighted with the fact that they've been able to hold off, get a 4-3 win. That's back to back wins for them and it pushes them that wee bit away. But for you personally and your side, because obviously Irvine Vic's are below you in the league, that must have been a good one for you when you've seen that Villa leaving managed to nick it.
Aye, well, we had someone up at the game then it was kind of topsy-turvy for first half. I think it was three each at half time. And obviously Vale will be delighted that they've managed to win the home game. Aye, listen, for us, it's immaterial at the moment. It's early in December, so the league table for me at the moment is not really of too much importance. But certainly, Irvine Vic, since Kevin that's took the job, they've seen a wee bit of improvement. Fortunately, we scored late on, but I think that they were mega fortunate and to get a point at our bit a fortnight ago. But listen, for yesterday, the fact that they've scored three goals away from home again and no managed to take anything from the game, they'll be disappointed. Obviously, there was a bit of a change in there with Stuart, and he was trying to change the kind of style of play and implement a more forward-thinking, attack-minded style of play. You could say, but obviously last week and the last few weeks have been a bit more direct, which is listen, it's their prerogative, and they've got a really tight home pitch, and I think that the style of play that they had previously, I've never had an easy game at Irvine Vic's.
Mhm.
I think the way that they play, they get the ball forward to Kevin. Savarese, I think, is probably the top striker in the league for me. So I listen, they've got good forward players. It's just a matter of keeping the ball at the back of the net for them. And I think yesterday again, the goals that they've conceded, they'll be really disappointed with the goals that they've conceded. But Vale are leading, we've got them next week at our
Yeah.
bit. So listen, it's a game we've obviously done our homework for them and prepared as best as we can. So hopefully I've got a good week at training and we can hopefully get 3 points next week.
Well, looking at your fixtures, yous have been quite unfortunate. I know you've picked up two draws at your last two games, Glasgow Uni and Irvine Vic's. But even before that, you look at Lugar, Fanart, Perthshire, who Perthshire obviously having a really good season, same with Fanart. Yous are running teams very close, even the top teams, yous are running them very close. Just looking at what you've got coming up, obviously Villa leaving next week, and then you've got Wishaw a few weeks later, but they've got the Thorn in between the two. You've got three, you've got Coolside, you've got Greenock coming up. It's quite a tough run for these, and you don't need me to tell you how tough it's going to be. You know better than me, but what are you telling the boys just now when you know that how important Vale leaving and particularly Wishaw are to try and pick up some points?
Just about trying to play our football, to be honest, mate. And I think that I was guilty of maybe about 6, 7 weeks ago. I was guilty. I had lost a couple in the bounce, and I think the league table wasn't looking too pretty, and I think going out to we played a home game, and I remember saying to them, this is a bit of a must win. Obviously my first job myself, and I'm still learning on the job as much, but it's not really a must win in
Mm.
November or October, So I think for the thing that the message that I've been giving the boys, certainly recently and pretty consistently recently, is just the fact that if we play our football and we've managed to bring in a couple of players, thanks to the chairman, we've managed to bring in a couple of players which will definitely help the squad. And it has been fine margins. We have been fine margins in games. I do believe that we should be further up the table in terms of the quality that we've shown in games. But ultimately, like I say, maybe I was a bit wet behind the ears at the start as well. And I think our first 5 or 6 games, we'd conceded a fortune of goals. Just far too open and expansive, trying to recreate football, my first job and that. So, but certainly since then, we've been a bit more resolute. We've been a bit more solid. We've certainly worked on a few things at training, shape wise, and the boys have been brilliant. They've been absolutely amazing since the day that I took the job. But there's no doubt about it. I believe that for the work that we're putting so far, we should be in a better position in the league. But listen, it's ultimately down to the fact that you can't win games when you concede poor goals and miss a bucket load of chances. So, listen, I'm pretty consistent in the message recently. We play our football that hopefully can get down and get a win on Saturday. But a win would be huge. We've not won since September time, I think.
Mm.
And the spirit in the group's amazing. So if we can keep that spirit and harness that with factoring in a few wins, then I'd like to think that it would open us up to a lot more possibilities. But listen, I know how tough the league is. There's some good teams in the league, and I know that spell we've got coming ahead. Obviously, Wishaw, three, of course, South Greenup. Aaron's obviously strengthened at Wishaw recently as well. Managed to get a good few players in the door, which was needed for them guys. So I'm sure that they'll improve the second half of the season, getting to understand how Aaron wants to work and the football that he wants to play. So listen, it'll be tight down there. For us, we've just got to try and improve, try and improve week by week, and hopefully the improvement in the team will then lead to more positive results, certainly moving up the table.
I genuinely think that the third division this year is probably one of the most competitive leagues in terms of, and there's a lot of quality. I'd say there's 3 or 4 teams in that league who are second division quality quite comfortably. Um, we spoke pre-season a couple of times about players and stuff. And I know the issues of the travelling where when I was at Craigmark, I know that was the reason that chose with the club. We spoke to the club and decided not to stay because I didn't feel I could get who I wanted to get in on the budget that was there, which was, to be fair, was reasonable. The club did everything they could for us. Yous are similar in terms of distance for travel. Have you found that difficult to bring players in because just of your location?
I did in the summer, because like I say, I come in to the party, so a lot of players were kind of already training with clubs or already maybe signed with or agreed to sign with clubs. But what I've managed to do is I've managed to bring in, top local players, managed to sign Chris Brown for Whitlets, who's localish to Girvan. Managed to bring Tony Cisse back through, who was at Tynecastle Hearts last year in the East. So managed to bring him back through to Girvan, obviously moved back closer to home. And I've signed maybe 3 or 4 other lads close to Girvan. So managed to get a core of boys there, but then I've also managed to tap into obviously good contacts, and John Conley, Queen of the South's been amazing for me. He gave me a goalkeeper who's been absolutely phenomenal. Since he came in, B Mark, 17-year-old, he's been probably the best goalie that I've worked with at this level since I stepped down, and he's been absolutely brilliant. So I've had to exercise it and make a lot of phone calls, and a lot of rejections, a lot of no answering back, and at the start, it was difficult to take. I took it personally, the fact that people want to return calls or stuff like that. But obviously, like I say, first gig, learning on the job and that. But the recruitment's been good. The chairman's been amazing. We've went through probably 15, 20 players, but the one thing I will say is that, and it's no disrespect to the players, but the players that have moved on for the club, they've not went higher level. The players have went and played amateur or other clubs and that. So the quality of squad that we've got now is 100 100 times better than what it was at the start of the season, but it's just about getting the results now to reflect that.
It'll just take its time. Moving on to fourth division, final game of the show. A big one for me, Rossvale 3, Easterhouse 2. Um, I think the fourth division is great. I really enjoy it. I really enjoy the new teams. I say this weekly. People will be sick of me saying it, but Easterhouse, Andy Suter's done a phenomenal job for me. How well he's done down there with very limited budget or what, or if any budget. The fact that they were whipping boys for a large spell before he went in made them so competitive. They lost to Kilburn in the cup last week. I heard they were really unlucky not to actually get something out of that. Rossvale, I think Josh is one of the best managers at that level. I think he's just, I know personally for the stuff he'll send me stuff. We talked about earlier. He'll send me stuff about what he's working on or what I think about certain things, and the detail he goes into everything genuinely is ridiculous. But they've had a really bad run, 6 games or something without a win. Get a couple of bodies back, a couple of new signings in, and that was a massive win for them, particularly coming from behind twice to get it. And because Easterhouse at that level, Easterhouse are a really good side, and that is a huge 3 points. Because I think if they'd lost that yesterday, they were all but done for promotion this season, just with the run up they've got and the fact that they'd lost to all the teams above them.
It was a brilliant one for them and a really important one, as you say. Puts them within touching distance again at Easterhouse. I think they're only 2 points behind
Yep.
them now. But for Rossvale and Josh, I think they've suffered a wee bit for the fact that they've not had a game in a wee bit of time again. But I'd obviously never seen the game, but I read that there was 2 minutes, 2 moments of absolute quality that had won the game for them. And excuse me, Easterhouse obviously they've had a great start to the season as well, and then really ran Troon close again a few weeks back. So listen, I'm sure that they'll take the defeat on the chin and they'll manage to turn that around. But I wouldn't be surprised to see both teams in contention towards the end of the year. I know obviously Josh again firsthand that the work that he's did with the South of Scotland team, and then obviously he's moved up to Rossvale, and it's yesterday for them. It's puts them back into contention, but there's some good teams in that league. It's a great league, as you said. I think that the likes of Knights would have been a breath of fresh air this year coming in, and obviously they're right at the top at the moment. But I wouldn't be surprised to see Easterhouse, Rossvale both in the promotion hunt towards the end of the year.
I completely agree with you. You mentioned Knightswood, who they're similar to Clydebank, where you think at this stage it's very hard to see where they're going to drop the points and where the Disney look like they're going to fall apart. They've still got the Port to play again, and the Port have to continue winning and then beat them to make it interesting, which would take it back to only 3 points between the two of them. And the Port, for me, have been absolutely flying, but both teams have got the same last 6 games, both won 5, drawn 1. They are putting themselves away, but you look at how tight it is. Even going down to, I'd say possibly, I don't think they'll do it, but possibly Scotbride, even though they had a heavy defeat yesterday to Largs, I don't think there's anything to take any shame in that. But you look at Easterhouse, all teams have played 13 apart from West Park and Eglinton. They've got 12 and 11 respectively. But Easterhouse, 25 points. Kello, 24 points. Rossvale, 23 points. West Park, we said with a game in hand, but 22 points. Eglinton, 19 with 2 games in hand. I think that it's going to be very, very interesting in that league to see who's going to be fighting right to the very death, because you've got 4 or 5 teams at this stage looking like they're fighting for one spot, and it'll be very close.
Aye, listen, I agree. Again, it's going to go right to the wire. Eglinton, I know that they'd lost a couple of players. They'd sold to Bonneton, so I don't know if that'll kind of impact them and their challenge. But as you'd said, the Knightswood I think are up there at the moment. It's theirs to throw away. But the Port, Easterhouse, Kello, Rossvale, they're all going to be up there. You know what I mean? They're all going to be up there. I think it'll come for that five. To be
Yeah.
honest, I think West Park maybe. I don't think they score enough goals. I think that most of the games are quite
Yeah.
tight from what I've seen. And ultimately, I think that'll maybe their shortfall. But listen, it's going to be tight in that league. A lot of good teams challenging. and a lot of good experienced players that have came back. To obviously Knightswood have got a few of them. Glasgow's got a few, and I think that they could be the key in the running.
I think you're 100% right. I think that's probably the difference in why they too are starting to stretch it. Is they've got a lot of young quality. I know both sides are reasonably young with quality there, but it is the older heads for it be like Midge or if it's kind of Darren at
Yeah,
Knightswood, there is a lot of quality there and guys who have done. I mean, particularly I know Midge is what, 41 or something, but you can see he's still a very fit guy. Having his gym at the fitness factory keeps him in shape. But as a guy who's won a Scottish Cup and stuff like that, it's just that becomes. I think you're spot on when you say that. That could be the difference between the two of them pushing on, and maybe Easterhouse or your Rossvale who are a bit younger and less experienced. But look, that's us for another week. I really appreciate you coming on, mate. Thanks for giving us up your time.
no worries. Hopefully, I've not annoyed as many focus what Johnny usually does when he's
Oh,
on.
I tell you what, honestly, see the messages I received since Johnny's been on the show is going through the roof, and Johnny's back next week. So if you want to have a go at him, then don't
No,
date
not
him.
at all. He's a
Don't
diamond.
date, don't date him Wonderbar. Just have a go at him on this. Um, But look, thank you very much for joining us, mate. Thanks everybody for watching and listening. And remember, next week get out and support your local club. A lot of league action next week instead of this cup nonsense every single week. So thanks for watching, everybody. Take care. Have a good one.